what is actually going on at Manchester United this summer. As someone who, of course, keeps an eye on other clubs, I can't help but feel, if I was a United fan, that I would be infuriated thinking that nothing is ever going to change. Because the same cycle is happening all over again. So if I'm looking at Liverpool, I'm looking at City, I'm looking at even Arsenal now, you're looking at what Chelsea are doing with the Club World Cup, and even Spurs, they seem like they could maybe get a few players that can maybe move them up a level as well. Gibbs White should be there hopefully at some point. United are kind of doing the same thing again, and it all relies on their failures in the past. The main five. This has been labelled as the bomb squad. This of course being Antony, Garnacho, Rashford, Malacia and Jadon Sancho. These 5 players have a combined wages of about £1 million a week. From these 5 players combined, everyone knows that these players are players that people want to be gone, and these players know they should be leaving. The main issue is, United are so well known for buying players at a very much inflated rate, giving them wages which is much more than what other clubs would give because they're Man United, that when you want to sell these players, it's almost an impossibility. They've got an awful record of buying a ton of money on a player, and most of them either goes for nothing or even goes on a free. Pogba, Alexis Sanchez, Lukaku, the list can go on of buying players for a lot of money, and then no one wants to buy them often because they eventually flop, so then they just end up going on a free anyway or for pittance. So comment down below your thoughts on United, how you think they'll do next year. This is genuinely fascinating to me. There's only so many times you can mess up before you keep doing it over and over and over again, before you learn something. Like, comment, subscribe, and Mazzolo Designs for the best football prints, all made by myself. Use code Vizeh for 15% off all items. Let's go. I feel like they're not learning from their mistakes here. They brought in, of course, Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. Bryan Mbeumo may not be confirmed by the time you see this, but as of the new reports today from David Ornstein, aka my dad, that he is coming to Manchester United and it should be agreed terms. Happy, good news. Now, there's a part of me that likes this because they're going for players which isn't an ideal big name. Cunha and Mbeumo are 2 players out of all the players of last year Premier League that have exceeded their expectations of XG the most. They had the biggest differential between goals scored and expected goals based on XG. They're going for players that may not be big names, that typically they would go for, you know, someone in the market like a Sesko maybe that everyone just expects to try to get. But no, they're going for Matheus Cunha and Mbeumo that may not be on paper really like off the sheet star names, but they'll be hard workers and they'll be players that would, you'd imagine, feel the pressure and also the honour of playing for Manchester United. You want players at your club that wants to be there. That's the main number one thing, to be part of a team. Now, hear me out. In terms of the personnel, I feel like that, you know, they're learning something here, but in terms of how they're bringing them in, it looks like they're just going to be making more mistakes. Matheus Cunha for £62.5 million from his release clause. Still think that's a lot of money. It was initially reported that Mbeumo was looking for over £200,000 a week. Now, that isn't currently what is being reported, and now he's looking for more like £150,000 per week. This is to triple his wages to what he's currently on at Brentford. These are all based on things you can see online by the likes of Capology or Sportrack, which is seen as the kind of mainstay of how to see wages online. Now, at this current moment, it looks like Mbeumo is currently on at Brentford about £50,000 a week. If you're comparing the wages to the likes of a João Pedro, to an Anthony Elanga, they're paying a lot more wages on Mbeumo than what they would into a typical market rate. To compare him to someone in the market going to a top 6 club at a kind of similar club level, Dominic Solanke scored 19 goals at Bournemouth and made that big move to a top 6 club in Tottenham Hotspur, reportedly earning £90,000 a week. That is a big difference. Keep in mind that Matheus Cunha, according to Capology and Sportrack, is currently earning £180,000 per week, which again, way above the market rate for a player of this kind of caliber at this level, which means that if they don't do well, if they try to sell them, you're not gonna find clubs looking for these players. And considering the fact he was on £90,000 a week at Wolves, he's doubled that again. So now we go back to the bomb squad. Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho, Antony, and even Malacia. They're required to show up to training, but not until after 5 PM when the first team has left. Now Garnacho is the only different story here. The other 4, they're seen as unsellable. They tried to sell Rashford last summer and tried again in January. They tried to sell Sancho in January. They tried to move on Antony in January. None of them got a single actual offer, and all had to be loaned out. Now, since this recording, Rashford, as of about 10 minutes ago, has agreed a deal on loan with Barcelona, leading to the same point. Rashford just can't be sold normally. Now, of course, you may say there's a buy option, but most loans typically do have a buy option. It is not an obligation, meaning that unless if Rashford absolutely is incredible at Barcelona, they're not going to take him. And it is, in my opinion, 90% sure that he's not going to stay at Barcelona past this season. And this is why I'm worried that they're not learning a lesson with Cunha and Embremo. If it works out, great, but history tells us that that's probably not going to happen. Yes, Embremo and Cunha are in the prime of their careers. They're both, 26 or so, like they're both in that peak age. But this is the thing, so much can go wrong so fast. It's not even if they would do that well, but can you imagine Amorim even being at United still in a year's time? I mean, history tells us probably not. Look, when Sancho joined United, his wages jumped by 5 times. When Antony joined United from Ajax, it jumped 4 times, a quadruple raise. Malacia went from £6.5 thousand a week to £75,000 a week. For what reason? No idea. Why does that need to happen? That is literally more than 10 times. That's like 12 times more for what seemed like no reason, for what was at the time meant to be a kind of rotational, maybe could be a starter left back in the future, but we don't really know under Ten Hag. United has a history of offering higher wages to players than the market value, and an equally long history of struggling to move these players on. And when we're looking at Antony, Sancho, Malacia, those 3 players cost United 167 million alone. Now, has there been interest? Yeah, Rashford could be going to maybe Barcelona, Sancho could maybe be going to Juventus, Malacia could be maybe going to Celtic, Garnacho could be linked to Chelsea or Napoli, Real Betis may also want Antony back. But the wages are a problem, and this is the thing. You're asking a player to say, hey mate, do you mind losing more than half the money you have? Because that's what you're asking them. If I go to you and I'll say, hey, so like you're making like £20,000 a week, but like you're doing nothing. Like you're just going and seeing the world and living a great lifestyle, doing literally nothing for most of these players. They could just be at the club, just not play. Or you could actually do something, do your job, but earn £5,000 a week. Now you may say, oh, well, 5k is still 5k. You're still earning good money. These players will not be poor by any means for taking different contracts, but hey, you can do 4 times that and don't have to do a single thing. And especially for someone like Antony, for someone like Garnacho that comes from, South America, this is a big amount of money that can change their entire family's history. Yeah, I don't blame them. But let's stop talking about that. The issue is, there's still so many players at the club that even after those 5, you would imagine should be moving pretty soon. Like, I can't imagine these players still being here. You're looking at, likes of Luke Shaw, Lisandro Martinez, that basically injury-wise have completely killed them. Martinez, seen as the butcher, I'll be surprised if he plays more than 15 games this season. Andre Onana, despite, all the back and forths, you cannot rely on Onana to be your main number 1. You can't. This is just a fact of the matter. He can have his moments. Realistically, he was brought in because he was meant to be better passing on the ball than De Gea. And the fact of the matter is, I don't even think he's even that much better. In terms of a number 9, I don't think Embremo or Cunha would be seen as a number 9 for them. They're more kind of advanced role players, but I don't think they're a number 9. They've still got Højlund, who again, he's been paid for a lot of money. So Liam Delap went, Gyökeres is probably going as well to Arsenal. And on the market, what's even available? Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Jamie Vardy? Højlund was brought in for £72 million. I'd be stunned if they can get maybe 20. The reality is, if you pay average players stupid wages, then you reap what you sow. Because reality is, most of these players, some maybe had some demand. Højlund may have been seen as maybe an up-and-coming talent, but not for £72 million. Again, Antony. Antony is a player that, at that stage in his career, many people wasn't even aware of. You would not even hesitate or stutter if you heard that he went to, a Wolves or a West Ham instead of a Manchester United for 25 mil. For the same time that they went and got him. And yes, there's some players that they bring in that you would think should be doing better. When they brought in Lukaku, everyone thought that he was going to be the man. When they brought in Paul Pogba, I don't want to say Paul Pogba was a flop. I don't want to say it, because even though, yes, he probably should have been more, he had his moments and he had his time. But, Alexis Sanchez, is a prime example of maybe the worst of all time. He was a good player with a lot of hype. He was experienced in the league, and not only did he spend a ton of money on him, but he also destroyed the wage budget in the squad. Alexis Sanchez is almost seen as the example of what made all this happen. What was reported is that Sanchez at United was around £500,000 a week. Any loan he tried to get, for example, when he went to Inter Milan paid only 20% of that wage. Still got paid almost 400 grand from United. United paid him, in the time that he was there, £39.9 million. £20 million per Premier League goal. For every touch he had on the ball was £28,000 per touch. Because of his wages, because of how high it went, it then completely messed up the entire wage structure, because players look at him and say, well, if he's got that, why can't I ask for 300 grand? Hence why Rashford got 350 grand a week, and now they can't get rid of him. So basically what I'm saying here is that even though I like the idea of Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, there's like 15 players that United that needs to go, and they won't, because no one wants them. So I don't actually know what's going to happen here, and I'll be stunned at this rate if they get top 10. I'm literally looking at, the players at United. I completely forgot about Mason Mount. He's still there. Now, yes, Mason Mount did get an injury or two, many actually. If I ever look at Sport Track here, for the current wages I'm seeing, the highest earner right now is apparently Casemiro, and about £350,000 per week. Sancho's on 250. Mason Mount is on £250,000 per week. Who thought of that? Who thought of that being a good idea? So yeah, that's Man United. I don't know how this can be solved, other than 10 years of hoping that all these players eventually leaves, and you just got to bite the bullet and just deal with the losses as they come, and then hope you can make some good signings with a better wage structure. But what I'm seeing with Cunha already, and maybe in Mbeumo, that may not be happening. So, good God. Hope you guys did enjoy. Comment down below your thoughts, United, and I'll see you boys next time. See ya.